Today I'm taking it back to the basics by attempting to survive 100 days in hardcore Minecraft. And I have just two super simple goals. Create a cozy base, and don't die. Kicking it off on day 1, I spawned in a taiga biome, which is pretty awesome since right off the bat we can get the best block in the game, spruce wood. And after punching down a tree, I used the wood to craft a wooden pickaxe. Using that, I dug underground and mined up 3 cobblestone, and that's all we need to craft a better stone pick. With that in hand, I went back underground and mined more cobblestone. And after getting a decent amount, I crafted a full set of tools as well as a furnace. Now that we have the basics taken care of, let's go look around and see what else we can find. Along the edge of the water, I spotted some firefly bushes as well as sugarcane, so I picked both of those up. And after a bit more adventuring, I stumbled upon some sheep, which is perfect, since we can make a bed now as well as get a bit of early game food. And right beside where I found the sheep, I spotted some surface level iron. And while I was in mining mode, I also collected some copper and a ton of coal ore that was also at the surface. I noticed my hunger was starting to go down, so I started cooking up the mutton we got from the sheep and then made a bed since it was already getting dark out. Honestly, the seed is treating us right so far. Pretty solid first day. On the morning of day 2, I grabbed our food out of the furnace and then put our raw iron in there and then enjoyed my meaty breakfast. While waiting for the iron to smelt, I killed some time by chopping down a few trees. And once the iron was done smelting, I crafted a brand new pickaxe as well as a shield. Now that we're a bit more geared up, let's try and find a cool spot to build our base. Along the way though, let's pick up anything else we find, like more iron, wildflowers, and I even found some cherry trees, so I chopped a couple of them down in order to get some saplings. Shortly after that, I found a few pumpkins, and then I spotted a ruined nether portal, so let's go check it out. The loot wasn't too crazy, but I did take the opportunity to grab the gold blocks. I continued searching for a suitable base location on day 3. While doing so, I found a village, so I borrowed all of their hay bales and also grabbed all the books I could find. And I even found a stone cutter, which will be pretty nice to have. From the vantage point of the village, I spotted this massive taiga biome, and I think it could be the perfect base location, so I began making my way over to it. I don't think I've ever built in this biome before, so I think it should be a fun challenge. And after scoping the area out, I think the spot will work great. The only issue is that there's currently a forest fire, so before the entire region turns to ash, let's fill in this pool of lava and get rid of all of the fire. That took pretty much the entire day, but I managed to get all of the fire put out. At least on the bright side, we have a bit of an open space where we can place down our crafting table, furnace, and bed. And I also made a couple of chests so that we can finally unload our super messy inventory. On day 5, I set up a simple sugarcane farm along the edge of the river, as well as a super small wheat farm just to get ourselves started. After that, I crafted some spruce fences and then set up a temporary animal pen. I ran around for like 5 minutes trying to find some of the cold cows, but they're simply nowhere to be found, so I guess some of the boring regular ones will have to do. I'm just kidding, of course, they're still cute, and after breeding them, I crafted some bread using the wheat we got from the village, and then I started smelting the rest of the iron. Once the iron was ready, I made a better axe, since I want to chop down a bunch of trees and get started on gathering up all the materials we're going to need to build a cool looking starter house. To get closer to that goal, I spent all of day 6 cutting down dark oak trees, as well as a few birch ones too. The iron axe we made already broke, and I don't really feel like gathering all the materials for the starter house with super slow stone tools, so let's go mining. I spotted an azalea tree, so let's dig under that and follow the rooted dirt trail down underground, as it should lead us to a lush cave. Along the way though, there was a skeleton and a couple of spiders, so I used my epic gaming skills to take care of those. After heading further underground, I ran into a lush cave as expected, so I gathered up some moss as well as some clay since it might be nice to use some bricks in our starter house. I then got to work searching for more iron since we're in desperate need of some upgrades. There's so many mobs down here, but I pushed through and gathered anything useful that I could find. Once I had a decent amount of iron, I made a little pit stop to smelt it all inside of some furnaces. And while waiting, I crafted a couple of bundles using string we got from killing spiders. If you haven't tried using bundles before, I really recommend it. Especially in the early game, it really helps a lot with inventory management. Anyways, once the iron was ready, I crafted a full set of armor as well as some new tools. With that, I'm feeling way safer, so let's continue exploring the cave system. And right off the bat, I spotted my first diamonds, which is absolutely awesome. As I continued mining, my iron pickaxe broke, so I decided to just use those diamonds we got to craft a better one. And I have no idea what's up with this cave system, as there's seriously so many mobs down here. But hey, at least there's also more diamonds down here, so I guess I can't complain too much. I also found a geode, so I took a minute to mine both a stack of smooth basalt as well as a stack of calcite, since we can probably incorporate them into our starter house. I mined even more diamonds and iron on day 10, but after nearly dying to some zombies, I figured it was about time to head back up to the surface before things go really bad. Just one last thing I want to do down here though is mine a few stacks of both tough and deep slate, since again, we'll probably need it for our starter house. I began making my way back home on day 11, but because I can't help myself, I stopped along the way to gather anything useful that I saw, like iron and lapis. Not gonna lie, got a little lost, and by the time I made my way back to the surface, it was already day 12. Once I reached our little starter base area, I organized my items, and here's a look at everything that we got from our mining adventure. And now that we're home, we better do some chores like breeding the cows again. While we're at it, let's also harvest and expand both the sugarcane and wheat farms. It looks like a few doggos spawned while we were mining, so you already know I had to use some bones to tame them. I brought them over to our base, and I have to say they instantly increased the vibes around here by like tenfold. I'm pretty much completely out of food, so before we starve to death, let's run around and use our flint and steel to instantly cook up some animals. I'm pretty scuffed at doing this, but I saw it in some speedruns, so I had to give it a try. I also did some manual river fishing to get even more food. And it was at that point that I spotted yet another forest fire, so let's put it out before it wreaks havoc on the entire region. By the time I got the fire put out, it was already dark, and like the dummy that I am, I didn't bring my bed with me, so let's quickly run back home before we get unalived. On the morning of day 14, I spent some time getting rid of all of the mobs that spawned during the night. With that taken care of, I started smelting the iron and copper that we got down in the mines. I also used some of our diamonds to craft a better axe and shovel, since it's really going to help with gathering all the blocks we need to build our starter house. And that's exactly what I want to do next, since I'm getting kinda tired of sleeping under the stars. Just as I was starting to collect some sand though, a thunderstorm started, and honestly, I cannot handle dealing with another forest fire, so let's just sleep and move on to the next day. Getting right back to it on day 15, I continued digging up a bit more sand, and I also grabbed a bit of sandstone too. Continuing with the resource grind, I mined a few of these mossy cobblestone boulders that are scattered throughout the taiga biome. After that, I cut down another large spruce tree because let's be real, we're going to need the wood. We're also probably going to need more birch, so I cut down a few of those trees as well. And it might be nice to use leaves as decoration, so I grabbed both dark oak and regular oak ones. And I'm also very much a flower enjoyer, so I picked up some lilies of the valley that I came across. After cutting down a few oak trees, I think we should finally have all the raw materials we need, so I went back home. Once I arrived, I began smelting some sandstone into smooth stone and sand into glass. After clearing a couple trees that were in the way of where I want to build our starter house, I figured I better take a second to harvest our farms and breed the cows again. With that taken care of, I started planning out the foundation of the house using tough blocks. Once I was happy with the shape, I started placing in some horizontal spruce logs, as I kinda wanna go for like a Tudor but also sorta cabin style house. Never really tried this style before, but I think we can figure it out as we go. And once the logs were looking good, I stripped them all down for a bit of a cleaner look. For the second floor, I began building up some pillars using regular and stripped dark oak logs. And to contrast the darker pillars, let's use some stripped birch wood in between them. Using the copper we smelted earlier, I crafted up some grates, which I think will work nicely for some windows. Unfortunately, I don't have nearly enough copper though, so if we choose to stick with these, we'll have to go get more. I mirrored the same wall design at the back of the house, but this time I tried using glass panes instead of grates, and I think I like that better, so I went back and replaced the windows at the front with glass as well. And now that we got a few grates back, I think we can use them for the first floor instead. With those walls in place, let's get to work planning out the roof line using deep slate tiles. It took a bit of trial and error, but I think I'm finally happy with the shape now. I want to tackle the next section of the house, so like before, let's build up some pillars using dark oak logs. Let's change up the heights this time though, just to add a bit more variety to the shape of the build. And we can also switch up the roofline on this section to help with that too. That's looking pretty good, but I can't help but notice the house is like 50% windows right now, so let's go back to the drawing board and see if we can cook something else up. And after messing around with the walls on all of day 20, I think they're looking quite a bit better now. I'm excited to get the house finished, but before we go too crazy, we better do our chores again. I mean, it wouldn't be a crypto video if we didn't breed the cows like every 2 minutes, now would it? Anyways, we pretty much have the build style locked in now, so I got back to work filling in the remaining walls. I also added a small extension to the side of the house with a small little roof on top of it to create more visual interest. Finally, all the walls are in place. And now that the walls are finished, let's fill in the rest of the roof using spruce. And to give it more of a rustic theme, I created some irregularities using full blocks, sideways stairs, and stripped spruce logs. I felt like the first floor walls were looking a little too plain, so I went around and mixed in regular and mossy cobblestone, tough bricks, and a tiny bit of andesite. And that got me in the texturing mood, so I also went around the roof again and mixed in some cobbled deep slate and deep slate bricks to give the trim a more worn down look. But with that, I'm pretty happy with how the main house is looking, so let's start adding some smaller details to bring it to life. First off, let's add a spruce door to create a side entrance. For the actual main entrance, we can use trapdoors to fill in the gap behind the archway, and then add a regular spruce door which blends in perfectly. The build could use a natural touch, so let's place down some flower pots in front of some of the windows and fill them with lilies of the valley. Last but not least, let's create some bushes using leaves for a subtle pop of green. It took a decent amount of effort, trial and error, but I'm feeling really happy with the house now. It's kinda quirky looking if I'm honest, but I think that adds to the charm. I'm really excited to get started on the interior, but before we do, let's take a second to harvest our farms again, and you'll never guess, breed the cows. With that dealt with, let's head inside and begin fixing up some of the interior walls. Once that was looking good, I dug out the ground to make room for an oak floor. That looks much better, but since the side entrance is a block higher than the rest of the floor, let's build a higher platform using deep slate and smooth basalt. And for this smaller room on the other side, let's continue the same theme by again mixing smooth basalt and deep slate. And because I can't help myself, let's add some texture variation to the oak section using some stripped logs. We're of course going to need a way to get to the second floor, so I installed a simple staircase using oak stairs. For the second floor, I went with our trusty spruce wood since that pretty much always looks good. After getting that in place, I patched up any weird gaps in the walls and then started filling in the ceiling, again using spruce wood. Now that the floors, walls, and ceilings are done, we can get to work on adding some of the actual details. I think upstairs is the best spot for our storage, so I placed down a bunch of barrels and chests that we can use to store everything. With those in place, we might as well get to work on bringing all of our items inside from the temporary chests we have outside. I'll organize everything later, but for now, I just want everything inside of our house. That also means tearing down our furnaces, crafting table, and bed. Let's place the furnaces back down near the side entrance, and we're going Harry Potter mode this world by placing our bed pretty much directly underneath the stairs. It's kinda cozy though, and the sun just set, so we can finally sleep with a roof over our head for the very first time, which is an awesome feeling. And on the start of day 29, I continued grinding away on the interior by first making a railing around the stairs using cherry trapdoors. After that, I placed some lanterns around the house and finally got rid of all of the temporary torches. Above the staircase, I created a shelf using spruce trapdoors, which I detailed with a barrel, chest, and flower pot. Next to the window, let's build a simple bench using extinguished campfires. And on the opposite wall, I think a painting will look great. To add a bit of greenery, we can make an indoor plant using a decorated pot and oak leaves. And to accompany that, let's make a small green rug. This little hallway area near the stairs is feeling super cozy now. Really happy with how that turned out. Moving on to the bedroom next, we can make a desk area using a lectern and birch stair. Above the bed itself, let's make another shelf using spruce trapdoors and decorate it with a cherry sapling and chest. Another idea I had was to display a clock so we know when we can sleep. And beside the bedroom, I built another indoor plant since I really liked how the last one turned out. The interior is getting close to being done, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. There's chores that need to be completed first. I harvested all of our wheat, expanded it to the other side of the river, and then used the wheat to breed the cows. And while we're outside, let's also find a few sheep and shear them for their wool. I then dyed the wool blue and used it to create a rug on the main floor of our house. Y'all already know I love a nice pop of color. To give this area a cozier kind of living room vibe, let's make a shelf using chiseled bookshelves and decorate it with a chest and flower pot. And we can fill it with some of the books we got from the village all the way back on day 3. The other wall is looking kinda plain now, so let's fix that with a big painting. For even more decoration, I placed down a barrel and added a flowering azalea on top. I felt like the furnaces were looking a little out of place now, so I reworked them a bit and then built a shelf above them, which I detailed with a double chest and cornflower. To finish off the main floor, I moved our clock over to a more visible wall and then added a book and quill to the desk. With that, the interior of our house is looking pretty sweet if I do say so myself. All that's left is this open area upstairs, which I want to be for our enchanting table. I don't think we have enough cows yet to get all the leather we need, so let's harvest the wheat and breed them again. Hopefully one more breeding session after this will do the trick. In the meantime, let's finally get started on organizing all of our items in the storage room. I even used some signs to help me remember where everything goes. To celebrate, let's do something super exciting. That's right, time to harvest the wheat and breed the cows. I just remembered we're missing something essential to craft an enchanting table, and that's obsidian, so let's take another trip underground to find some. Along the way though, I got distracted mining a ton of coal and iron since we're in desperate need of more. I also ran into a bunch of zombies, and one of them even dropped a carrot, which is kinda cool. We'll have to set up a farm for that later. What's even cooler is that the zombies were all coming from a spawner, so I was able to collect some loot from the chests. Anyways, I continued making my way lower into the cave in the search of a lava pool. And along my journey, I found a few more diamond veins, which is great since I'd love to make some better armor soon. Since my pickaxe is about to break though, let's sacrifice 3 of our new diamonds to create a new one before it breaks. No biggie though, since I found a bunch more while the search for a lava pool continued. It took forever, but I searched and searched until I finally found one. Let's use a water bucket to convert it to obsidian and mine it up. And I just went ahead and collected 30, which took pretty much the entire day, but at least we'll have lots of extra to build a nether portal and anything else we'll need. But with that in hand, let's finally head back up to the surface. I have to say, it feels great to be back home. I went ahead and organized my items, and here's a look at everything we got. We just went down for obsidian, but came back with tons of other goodies too, which is awesome. And since we got quite a few diamonds, let's craft a full set of armor. It only took us 38 days, but I'm feeling way safer now. Alrighty, let's do a big harvest of all the wheat and sugarcane, breed all of the cows again, and kill all the adults for their leather so we can make some bookshelves for our enchanting setup. Looks like I'm a few leather short though, but we can just steal a few books from our bookshelf and it should be all good. I then went ahead and crafted an enchanting table and 15 bookshelves. Before we place them down though, let's start cooking up the steak we got from killing the cows since I'm almost completely out of food again. And let's also smelt up the iron we got from the mines while we're at it. Okay, enough stalling. Let's place down our bookshelves upstairs and of course the actual enchanting table. And we of course gotta add some details to spice up the area, so let's create yet another shelf that we can use for storage and a couple of flower pots. An anvil and grindstone are also kind of essential, so I added those too. For the blank wall on the right side, I created a simple table using oak stairs and a slab, and on top of it, I displayed a dark oak sapling and cherry pressure plate. After that, I added a couple final details like a blue rug and painting to tie the room together. I'm pretty happy with how this space is looking now, and since we're currently level 32, let's try out our brand new enchanting setup. I decided to enchant our pickaxe and ended up getting efficiency 4 and unbreaking 3, which I guess is pretty good. I just had an idea, and that's to add a chimney to our house, so I got to work breaking down some clay blocks so we can smelt them into bricks. And when I took the iron out of the furnaces to make room for the clay, I got back up to level 30, so we might as well enchant a second item. This time, I tried enchanting a brand new shovel. I only ended up getting efficiency 4, which is alright, but really not that great to be honest. No worries though, let's get back to work building the chimney for our house. I used a combination of granite and bricks, and then capped it off with some campfires surrounded by trapdoors to get some nice smoke particles. That really helped bring out the cozy cabin vibes I'm going for, so super glad we took a second to add it. One final thing I want to do to finish our starter house is bring the 3 dogs inside that we tamed earlier. I think the first one can just hang out in the living room, the second one can chill in our bedroom, and the last one can relax by our enchanting table. But with that, I think it's about time to check in on my real-life pets. Lately, I've been using my 2 cats, Munchie and Mittens, to guilt trip all of you into liking the video. It's pretty shameless, not gonna lie, but it helps out the channel a ton, so if you can take a second to do it, I'd really appreciate it. Anyways, getting back to Minecraft, I want to start creating some new builds to accompany our starter house, so let's start by clearing some space by cutting down some trees. And I'm also pretty low on materials, so this should help with that issue too. I continued cutting down trees on day 44, but of course my axe broke, so I just went ahead and crafted a new one since we still have a few diamonds in our storage room. With a fresh axe in hand, I spent the rest of the day as well as all of day 45 cutting down trees. We've got a nice big area cleared out now, which is awesome, but the terrain's looking kinda scuffed now, so I think it's time for some terraforming. First off, I removed most of the boulders that naturally generate in the taiga since I think we can build better custom ones. I'm going to need a lot of mossy cobblestone to build them though, so I went deeper into the forest and mined even more boulders. With a few stacks of mossy cobblestone gathered up, I went ahead and used my shovel to dig up a bunch of dirt we can use for terraforming. I pretty much killed my shovel in the process, but at least we have a bunch of dirt blocks now. Let's continue getting a few more resources we're going to need, like both oak and spruce leaves. While we're out and about with some shears, we might as well get a few stacks of shortgrass and a few vines too. After that, I went back down to the lush cave again to collect a few stacks of moss blocks. And while I was down here, I also picked up a bit of glow lichen. Hopefully that should be the last item I need to collect for the terraforming, so I began making my way back up to the surface. At our house, I crafted the last of the materials we're going to need. I have a feeling I'm going to need more dirt, but this should be enough to at least get us started. First things first, let's remove the old temporary sugarcane and wheat farms along the edge of the river, since at this point it's more of an eyesore than anything else. Speaking of eyesores, as cool as the podzol in the taiga is, I think it looks a little bit too messy for my liking, so let's remove a lot of it and replace it with regular dirt. The grass will eventually spread over it, and I think it should look pretty sweet. And at the same time, I smoothed out the terrain and just tried to make things look more natural. My shovel was about to break from all the digging, so on day 52 I enchanted a new one and then combined my 2 shovels to create a better one. And with that in hand, I got back to terraforming. I locked in for the next 3 days in order to get all the terrain smoothed out and looking good. Just ignore the weird looking gaps, as those spots are where I want to build our new custom boulders. And let's get started on that right away by using the blocks we gathered earlier to put some together. I tried sticking to the style of the vanilla ones, but I added more texture variation and variety to the shapes to make them more interesting. And then to really take things to the next level, I got to work on building a huge boulder along the edge of the water. I also added a subtle moss effect using leaves, moss, and short grass. All this terraforming took quite a bit of time, but if we take a look at the before and after, I'm glad we did it since I think the space looks way better now. I had the fun idea of integrating a nether portal into the largest boulder. So after using the obsidian we mined earlier to build it up, I blended it into the boulder itself using glow lichen and vines. I love how this created a kind of ancient and ruined look to the portal. Almost like it's been here for a long time and the vegetation is slowly taking it over. I'm nervous yet excited to see what's in the Nether, but before we head inside, let's gear up a bit by crafting a diamond sword, gold boots, and a bow. But with that, I think it's time to face our fears and go through the portal. I got a pretty decent spawn with nothing too dangerous nearby, so I began searching for anything cool. First off, I mined some bone blocks that I spotted, since having access to a ton of bone meal should be pretty nice. After that, I grabbed some soul sand. Not sure if I even have a need for it, but I figured why not get some while I had the chance. Same story for this glowstone. I literally have no idea if I'm going to use it, but I mined some anyways. I'm starting to think I maybe just have a hoarding problem or something. Anyways, something that will for sure be useful is getting some XP by mining a bunch of quartz. Aghast tried to interrupt me, but I went full gamer mode and deleted him from our world. But after getting 30 or so levels, I decided not to push my luck any further and made my way through the portal and back home. Back at our house, I used the levels we got to enchant our axe, and I ended up getting Silk Touch and Efficiency 4, which is pretty good. Our base is slowly shaping up, but I think it's finally time to upgrade our scuffed animal pen and build a cozy barn for our cows. So without wasting any time, I got to work crafting all the items we're going to need, like chains, dark oak stairs, and deep slate brick slabs. And I also spent the entire next day crafting items too. Fortunately, we have quite a few raw materials from chopping down all those trees earlier, which made this process a lot easier. Sticking with the idea of making our life easier, let's place down and strip a bunch of spruce and dark oak logs to make the building process more straightforward later on. I know it uses up durability on our axe, but it's still worth it to me. And I think I've exhausted the supplies in our storage room at this point, so let's lock in and collect the remaining items we need. First, I chopped down some oak trees. And now that we have efficiency on our axe, it went by pretty fast. And using the wood we collected, I crafted some trapdoors. Everything else I needed was underground, so I went back to one of the caves we explored to collect a few stacks of granite blocks, and then I went deeper underground to mine some tough blocks as well. And with that, we should now have all the blocks we need to build an awesome barn. Just one last thing I had to do was shrink the existing cow pen a little bit since it was kind of in the way. Anyways, enough messing around, let's get to building. I wanted this build to match our starter house, so I used mainly tough and mossy cobblestone again for the foundation. To keep the space feeling open and to allow for better airflow, I used oak trapdoors as windows. For the roof itself, I went with a dark oak trim and filled in the rest using a mix of different deep slate variants to add depth and texture. With the main structure done, let's add some life to the build by creating some bushes using spruce leaves as well as some oak saplings in flower pots. And it's probably a good idea to add some lanterns for some lighting. I repeated the same design at the back of the barn, and then I switched it up a bit on the sides by using cornflowers instead. These are pretty nice though, since it adds a subtle pop of color. I'm happy to call the exterior finished, so heading inside, I got to work building a new stall on the right side using dark oak fences. I then moved all the cows over to the new pen, and then finally tore down their old one, which I have to say feels pretty nice to get rid of. And with that eyesore gone, I built a second pen on the left side of the barn. I noticed it was pretty dark inside, so I added a couple of lanterns hanging off of chains. After that, I removed a lot of the grass blocks and then filled the space back in with rooted dirt, coarse dirt, and granite to give the area a muddier feel, which I thought was pretty realistic for a barn. For a few final details, I added a crafting table near the entrance, and then on the back wall I placed a hay bale, barrel, and chest to fill out the space. Pretty simple interior, but I think in a good way, so I'm gonna vibe with it. However, with that said, I really want to put some of the new cold cows inside of the barn. We tried finding some all the way back on day 5, but didn't have any luck, so let's give it another shot. And after running around almost the entire day, I finally found some. I was able to get a few of them into some boats, so I spent the rest of the day transporting one of them down the river and back to our base. It's super fun seeing one of the new cows inside of the barn, but he definitely needs a friend, so on day 68, I went back and brought a second one to the barn just using the same boat technique. And now that we have 2 cows in here, I bred them so that we can see those super cute baby cow horns in their full glory. Okay, so I just kind of remembered that firefly bushes are a thing now, so I used bone meal to make a bunch, and then I dotted a few along the water in front of our nether portal. I'm pretty glad we got distracted doing that, since the terrain looks even cooler now. To make our world feel more connected, I started day 69 by digging out some space for a brand new pathway. Once that was all dug out, I just had to collect a bit of horse dirt, which really wasn't that hard to find in the taiga, and then I got straight to work building the pathway itself. I also mixed in some rooted dirt and granite in with the coarse dirt to give it some nice texture variation. Since we got rid of our old crop farms a while back, I think it's about time we make some permanent ones, and I think this open space beside the barn will work great. I began by adding a few water sources, and then I covered them up with dark oak slabs, and on top of those, I placed polished deep slate walls and lanterns. With all of those in place, I began tilling the ground to create a large section of farmland. And for this one, I kept it simple by filling it all in with some wheat seeds. After that, I tilled the ground again, but switched this one up by creating 3 smaller sections. And since I had them, I figured why not plant some beetroots and carrots. I only had a couple, but eventually we should be able to get the farms completely filled in. It started to rain on day 71, but I had one more farm idea, so I first placed down a couple rows of podzol, surrounded them with spruce trapdoors, and then planted sweet berries on top to create some raised planter boxes. And I felt like getting out of the rain at this point, so I decided to take another trip into the Nether to mine quartz again. I kept mining until I got up to level 36, and then I made my way back to the overworld. Back at our house, I did a slightly lower level enchant on my boots, which gave me Feather Falling 4, arguably one of the best enchants in the entire game. After that, I enchanted my bow and got Power 4 and Infinity. Pretty happy about Infinity since I don't really have that many arrows. I did my leggings next and just got Protection 4. And that brought me below level 30, but I decided to just do some lower level enchants on the rest of my gear just to make ourselves a bit safer. We can always use a grindstone and re-enchant stuff later if we want to. But now that we're more geared up, I want to try and find a fortress inside of the Nether since I'd absolutely love to beat the game before the 100 days are up. I pretty quickly found one, but what's crazy about this one is that it's directly beside a bastion. I'm pretty sure this is pretty rare, so kind of a cool find. And since there's a bastion, we might as well explore it first and try and get some fire resistance potions, which will make fighting blazes a lot safer. I fought off piglins and brutes, looted all the chests I could find, and even traded some gold to get more items. I also really wanted to find a netherite upgrade template, and just when I was about to lose hope, one of the final chests that I opened had one inside. I'm super happy that we found that. And after trading the remaining gold I found with piglins, I ended up getting a few fire resistance potions and 12 pearls, which isn't too bad. I was pretty sure I looted the entire structure at this point, so I made my way over to the fortress next. Before I even got there, a blaze sniped me out of nowhere, so I just went ahead and drank one of the potions we got. That made things a lot easier, so I traveled over to the fort and began farming blazes to get some rods. I got a decent amount and wanted to explore the rest of the structure, but I accidentally hit a zombified piglin like a noob. I thought I could maybe fight through them, but a huge horde started chasing me down, so I figured it wasn't worth the risk and made my way back to the overworld. At our house, I organized all of our loot, and taking a look at all the items we got, I'd say this adventure was a huge success overall. I geared up a little bit on day 76, and then I took a minute to expand our beetroot farm since I noticed it had grown. After that, I crafted some Eyes of Ender, and then started tracking down the stronghold using the eyes. Along the way, I bumped into a jungle biome, so I took a little pit stop to get some saplings, melons, cocoa beans, and bamboo. After that little distraction, I continued following the eyes until it seemed like I was in the right spot. I then dug down, and sure enough, I ran into the stronghold. Right into a library too, which is pretty cool. I explored the library and ended up finding a couple of eye armor trims. And pretty close to the library, I discovered the end portal. And it has 2 eyes in it already, which is seriously so perfect since I only have enough materials to make 10 Eyes of Ender. Before we head inside though, let's see if we can find anything else cool in the stronghold. I came across a spawner room that kind of glitched into the stronghold, which was kind of interesting, and there was even a pearl in one of the chests, so I guess we have an extra one now. I also found a second library that had more eye armor trims, and there was also a pretty decent enchanted book. Besides that though, nothing too crazy, so let's stop stalling and light the portal. This is always a little scary, but let's head inside. While being careful not to stare any of the endermen in the eyes, I got to work destroying all of the end crystals so that the dragon won't regenerate health. With all of those taken care of, I started attacking using both my sword and bow. And it's a really good thing we got infinity on our bow because my aim is absolutely hot garbage. In the end though, it didn't matter since before long the dragon was defeated. And with that, I think we finally reached pro gamer status. I then collected all of the experience as well as the egg. I was considering looking for an end city, but there's still a decent amount of stuff I want to build at our base, so I want to prioritize that first. With that said, I went back to the overworld. Since I brought some obsidian with me, I made a nether portal so that we can travel home faster through the nether. I forgot to bring gold armor, so I had to be a bit more careful of piglins, but I managed to get safely back to our home base portal. And I have to say, it feels great to be back home. I organized my items since my inventory was a mess, and here's a look at what we got from our adventure. Instead of just throwing the dragon egg into a random chest, I had the idea to build a secret cave where we can display it, so I grabbed a few items I thought I'd need to build it. And I think integrating it into this large custom boulder we made will look super cool. For the entrance, I just created a simple arch using dark oak. The tricky part was blending it naturally into the boulder, but with a bit of time, I was able to get it to a point that I was happy with. Also, the firefly bushes look awesome at night and kind of light up the path leading to the entrance, which I absolutely love. On day 83, I got to work on the cave itself by digging out a larger area and then replacing the ground with the same block palette as our paths, just to make our entire base a bit more cohesive. I then started roughing out the main shape of the cave using mossy cobblestone and tuff blocks. I also mixed in some cobblestone for even more texture variation. Once I was happy with the shape, I added in lots of slabs to smooth it out even more and make the entire thing look a bit more natural. And to bring more green into the build, I went back and added some moss blocks into the mix as well. For natural areas like this, it's really just a lot of placing and breaking blocks until things look the way that I want. It almost feels like the less I think about it, the better it turns out. Anyways, the main shape of the cave was looking pretty good at this point, but I had just one more idea for the floor, and that was to add a bit of jungle wood. I mean, we got some from our adventure, so why not? To make the cave look reinforced, I built some support beams using spruce fences. After that, I replaced all of the regular lanterns with soul lanterns to give the cave a moodier, more ominous feeling. And then for a bit of vegetation, I added shortgrass, moss carpet, and a few wildflowers just for a hint of color. I also dotted some glowberries on the ceiling to give the entire cave a more overgrown vibe. But of course, the whole reason for making this cave was to have a spot to display the egg, so let's place it on top of a lodestone to finish off the build. While making the cave, our crops had time to grow, so I took a minute on the start of day 87 to expand both our beetroot and carrot farms. After that, I put my helmet through our grindstone and tried re-enchanting it to get respiration. It took a couple of attempts, but I got it. The reason I want this enchant is so that we can do some terraforming along the edge of the river. When we did all that custom terraforming a while back, I was pretty lazy and left the land floating, so I want to take some time to get it properly connected to the bottom of the river. While doing so, I ran out of dirt, so I had to take a quick break to gather more. Honestly, this is probably going to be completely unnoticeable from the surface, but at least in my heart, I'll know it was done correctly. And once everything was connected up and smoothed out, I used a bit of bone meal to add just a touch of greenery. All in all, I'm glad we took the time to do this, as it just makes our base feel more polished. We've been doing a lot of terraforming, so I want to build a brand new structure. I've seen a few videos lately of people building firewatch towers, so I thought I would try making my own. And considering we've had to put out a couple of fires already, I think it's pretty fitting. I was pretty much able to craft everything I needed in our storage room, but I do want to use some mud brick walls in the build, so I made some mud using dirt blocks and a water bottle. Afterwards, I harvested our entire wheat farm. And while I was in farming mode, I harvested our beetroots again. I was able to get the entire section filled in after replanting, so I started filling in the last empty section of our farming area with beetroots as well. And of course, I expanded our carrot farm too. It's slowly getting there. Anyways, the whole reason for getting wheat was so that we could make packed mud, which I then turned into mud bricks, and finally mud brick walls. And with that, we should have everything we need to build the firewatch tower. I created the main frame almost entirely out of spruce wood, with just a bit of oak logs mixed in for texture variation. I then constructed the top of the tower using granite, tuff, and mud brick walls, and I included a bunch of windows for easy firewatching capabilities. In reality, the tower would be way taller, but I wanted it to fit in with the rest of our builds, so I kept the scale on the smaller side. Overall though, I'm really happy with the build, and it added some nice height variation to the area, which I like a lot. As we're quickly approaching day 100, I want to continue adding smaller details all around our base to get it looking as good as possible. I began by placing some sugarcane along the edge of the river, and then I used the classic string trick to stop them from fully growing. Just helps create a bit more variety. After that, I dotted more shortgrass around and also added a couple of flower patches to bring more color into the area. And since I had them on hand, I even added some drip leaf to the riverbank to make it even lusher. Continuing with adding more natural elements, I planted a few azaleas and blended them into the environment with shortgrass. And I had a bunch in my storage room, so I used leaf litter to smooth out some of the harder edges on the pathway. It's my first time trying this technique, and the result is subtle but pretty cool honestly. I'd love to add some bushes to the area, but I don't have any, so on day 94 I set out on a little adventure to find one. It didn't take too long since they naturally generate along riverbanks. Using bone meal, I made a bunch more and then collected them all with my shears. Back at our base, I planted them back down alongside some shortgrass to help fill in any remaining empty spaces. I also used bone meal to help blend things even more, and added more flowers because why not? I wanted our crop fields to be fully filled in, so I used bone meal to instantly grow our wheat, carrots, and beetroots. I'm feeling really glad right now that we got all those bone blocks in the Nether earlier. And now that all the crops are grown in, this area is looking a lot more complete. On day 96, I made a new shovel and tried enchanting it a few times until eventually I got Silk Touch. With that in hand, I felt confident enough to grow a large spruce tree beside our barn. It generated a bunch of podzol, which I didn't love, but using our shovel, I was able to gather some grass blocks and then patch up the area to get it back to the way it was. Using bone meal once again, I made some glow lichen, which I collected with some shears. I then dotted it all around our base to help light up the dark areas. This should help a ton with making our base safer at night. During all of our adventures, I was able to pick up a couple of name tags, so I used our anvil to name one of them Lapis and the other one Harry. And of course, these are going to be for our dogs. This little guy will be Lapis, and the doggo in our bedroom will be Harry. I'm sorry, dog number 3, you'll have to be nameless for now. Anyways, we found 5 eye armor trims in the stronghold, so I crafted a smithing table, placed it downstairs, and then used the templates to add trims to my entire set of armor. I went for a blue on blue theme, which looks pretty sick, except for that it looks like I have giant blue eyebrows. But at this point, I think all of our builds are pretty much complete, so I crafted a few maps and revealed them to capture everything we've built from a bird's eye perspective. I wasn't exactly sure the best spot to display them, but after looking around, I think this wall next to our enchanting table will work perfectly. And as always, maps continue to be one of my favorite things in the entire game. On day 99, I went over to our barn and bred the cold cows again since I hadn't checked on them in a while. I want to tour the world on day 100, and I don't really have anything I super need to get done beforehand, so I spent the rest of the day building a secret room behind the painting in our living room. It's been a while since I've made one of these, but it was honestly pretty fun to throw together. And I left a secret message in here for all of you who made it to this point in the video. But with that, I put my items back into our storage room in preparation to tour this super cozy base. Alrighty, starting the tour in our starter house, we're on the main floor here. The interior on this house turned out pretty nice. It's pretty simple, but it's also pretty functional, so pretty happy with it. Upstairs is where we have our storage room. Everything is all nicely organized here. And then just on the back wall, we have our enchanting table. We actually still have quite a few levels left over, which is kind of surprising. But let's head outside and continue checking out everything else that we've built. So if we just head out the front entrance here, we have all this terraforming that we did along the edge of the river. But if we follow this moss sort of algae path further down, it takes us over to the custom cave that we made. I had a lot of fun putting this one together. And I really like the lighting with the soul lantern. It just created this nice kind of moody vibe, and it turned out to be the perfect spot to put our egg. And we also built our portal right into this boulder. I really like all the vegetation kind of climbing up the boulder and almost overtaking the portal. Just created this really cool kind of like ancient vibes, which I don't know, I just really like it. But if we head further up the hill, this is where we have our barn. I was super sad at first that we weren't able to find any cold cows, but luckily on our second try, we were able to find some. Right beside the barn, we have this small little sweetberry farm, which just helped fill out the space a little bit and also kind of helped tie into the taiga biome. And on the other side of the barn, we have even more farms. So we have our giant wheat one here, and then also these alternating beetroot and carrot farms, which just added some nice greenery and helped fill out the space. And I also really like how this watchtower came out. It should be like way taller above all of the trees, so you can see for like, you know, kilometers. But overall, I think it turned out pretty cool and was kind of something different that we could add to our base area, so I'm glad we added it. This wasn't really the biggest base that I've ever made, but it turned out really cozy and I'm really happy with the end result. And as always, if you want to explore it for yourself, you can get the world download on my Patreon. But with that, let's sleep one final time to take us to the 100 days. And with that, thank you so much for watching and happy building.